February 1939, Smedley, South Carolina was colder than Siberia. I was 7, my sister Bertha was 5, and the twins, Daniel and Samuel, were 2. Our job that winter was stuffing newspapers and old rags around the cracks in the windows and the walls and the doors to keep the drafts out. We exercised to keep warm. Mostly, we did a lot of jumping jacks and loft relaying. We ate plain oatmeal and sugar tits. That's a piece of cloth that's soaked in sugar water, but since we couldn't afford no sugar, we was really sucking on wet rags and make believing they were sugar tits. We had so much fun running in and jumping in the house without getting yelled at and make believing our oatmeal and wet rag dinners was something else that we probably never would have realized how bad off we was if it wasn't for Mr. Tucker and things getting so much better. Mr. Tucker was older than my daddy, who was older than my mama. He was like maybe 29 or 30 years old. And he owned a lot of land, like millions and millions of acres. And they had all kind of trees on them. And they always needed chopping and splitting and planting and pruning. It was a lot of work. And it took a lot of people to help. And he had to hire hands. And one day, he hired my daddy, and everything changed forever. It was always a good time when Mr. Tucker come by, because if Mama knew he was coming ahead of time, she would put the trotters or the fatback that she'd been saving into the greens. And sometimes Mr. Tucker would bring over a beef tongue or a rabbit for Mama to fix, and we'd eat like it was Sunday. Mr. Tucker would give me and my sister and brothers pecans, walnuts, cashews, and apples from his trees. And sometimes he would give us a peppermint ball or a gum stick. And sometimes he would give us the spare change in his pocket. Lesson he only had 1 or 2 coins, didn't get that to me being as I was the oldest. I like Mr. Tucker like people like Santa Claus, because that's what he was to my family and me. Mama and Daddy is always saying, I got to give up something that I want, because I'm the oldest and I got to help out with the little kids. Like the wagon that Daddy used to pull us around in the yard. I used to love to get pulled around in that wagon. And then me and Bertha got pulled around. And then all 4 of us got pulled around. Until we got too big to all fit. Then Daddy said I had to get out. Why? Why I got to be the one to get out? I was in it first. Samuel was whining and squirming around because he couldn't get all the way in. And that's how come Daddy said I had to get out in the first place. Out now, Alice. I ain't gonna say it again. I was so mad. I stalked over to the outhouse before I could even get inside. I upchucked my breakfast. I taught myself to throw up all my bad thoughts and feelings because Mama said if you keep bad things inside, then they can make you ugly and sick. Mama was hanging laundry when she heard me retching, and she come with a warm wash rag and she cleaned me up right there. And then she asked me to help her get supper started. Before the biscuits was even mixed, Daddy was at the table. You got to make an example of yourself so the young ones will be better. Why? Why I got to be the example? You the example, because we say you the example. Well, if you need an example to get better, and the oldest always got to be the example, then who my example then? Daddy picked me up and put me on his knee, and then he brushed my hair with his hand. You listen to your mom and me. That's how you know how to be a good example. Now, we can't always have what we want. Life ain't like that for nobody. We got to make sacrifices so things get better for everybody. Now, God taught Jesus that. Then he had his only child to give up his life to save the world. You hear me, Alice? God had Jesus to give up his life to save the world. Now, all your daddy did was ask you to give up a seat in the wagon. That wasn't such a big deal, now was it? Now, what you think Jesus done when he found out his daddy was going to let him be killed? You think he went stomping around, crying and throwing up in the yard? No. All prayers get answered. Now, it might not be today, but something good is going to happen to you for letting Samuel ride in your place. And she took my hand and kissed it and rested on her cheek. And she got up and finished mixing the biscuits.